Hello everybody. My name is Otto Söderlund and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Speechly. I'm a tech entrepreneur who's been passionate about artificial intelligence for 2 decades already. And prior to founding Speechly, I founded the leading digital management consultancy in the Nordics. I grew it, I internationalized it, and I sold it off to a bigger management consultancy chain. After my 3-year earnout, I joined my buddy Hannes in building Speechly when he returned back to Finland from having built Siri at Apple. Speechly is a small team of industry veterans who have been building the previous generation of voice technologies, or actually the current generation that's still out there. Namely, products that we all use, like Siri at Apple, Alexa at Amazon. And Speechly is headquartered in Finland, where our product team still resides, and our commercial team sits in Chicago in the US. Our team has very close ties to the academia, and a significant share of our team is or has been a machine learning researcher in the academia. And we have spent the last 5 years reinventing the voice technology stack from scratch. And what we've done is that we built our own proprietary technology for doing speech recognition and natural language understanding that is not using any external components or parts. So it's 100% our own. So I'm here today to talk to you about reactive voice UIs. And to start off, let's define what are reactive voice UIs. And the easiest way to define it is actually make the comparison to assistant voice UIs that everybody here, I'm sure, are familiar with. So the first difference between assistant voice UIs and reactive voice UIs is that when assistant voice UIs are really optimized for a conversion, the reactive voice UIs really focus on optimizing the user's task and completing it as fast and efficiently as possible. The other distinction is that when an assistant voice UI uses voice both to get input to the system and get output back from the system, a reactive voice UI actually uses voice to get input and actually visual to get output back from the system back to the user. Third distinction is that what this allows you to do to leverage multiple modalities, it allows you to create interactions where the information processing is a lot more efficient because information exchange happens in a full duplex way where information is processed simultaneously back and forth between the user and the system, whereas traditional assistant voice UIs really focus on a turn-based approach. And lastly, when voice assistant user interfaces look at voice as an operating system or an interface or a channel, reactive voice UIs really look at voice as a feature to be used alongside complementing and augmenting existing user interfaces and modalities, like in graphical user interfaces. So just to give you a small sample of what is a reactive voice UI, here is an example. Okay, there was no sound clearly in here. Let's retry. Okay, now. Are you trying to play demo? Yes. Yes, is there any sound? Is there any sound available for the demo? It's a voice UI, so it's pretty important to have a voice component to a voice UI, so. Yeah. Are you able to put it? Should I retry? Yeah. Cool. And by the way, these are not working either. Okay, let's try.
Show me Samsung TVs from $400 to $750.
Okay. I'll play that again so everybody can hear. So here's an example of a reactive voice UI in action.
Show me Samsung TVs from $400 to $750.
So as you could see, it was a voice UA, but there wasn't any conversation. It was really focusing on solving the user's task as easily and fast as possible. I will show you a couple of more examples, but before that, I'll tell you a little bit more about how we've got here and where are we actually today. So I wanted to start by going back to the year 2016. And this was a very special year for multiple reasons, not the least of those being the fact that this was the year when we started Speechly. But it was also a year where there were quantum advancements made in the field of speech recognition, and it was the first time when human parity was reached in speech recognition tasks. It's also a year where huge advancements were made in tasks like speech synthesis and machine translation. On the business side, on the other hand, it was the year when Alexa really started to lift off, and also when Google launched a new assistant service. Now, fast forward 5 years, and this technology has still been making amazing advancement. In only 5 years, we've already reached superhuman accuracy in most of the benchmark tasks in speech recognition and natural language understanding. So the advancements have been amazing. But if you look at the voice user interfaces, they're still in the niche. So we've really not seen the big breakthrough that everybody who were so optimistic on year 2016 were really hoping for. And despite all of these great achievements technologically, I think that everybody here can unfortunately agree that the reason why voice is still in the niche is that the quality of the user experience just isn't there yet. Now, when we talk about quality, quality is often defined that high quality is when expectations are met, that when the performance exceeds or meets the expectations of the users. Well, the problem with voice UIs is that the expectations are set extremely high. You know, there's lots of very powerful, amazing companies who have promised the moon from the sky about the promises of what voice technology can do, but really, today, the value delivered is here. And there's a huge gap between the expectations and reality. And this is really the problem why we are still a niche community, and we should deserve better. Now, what should we do to solve this? Well, it's pretty obvious, I think. What we should do is basically lower the expectations and increase the value delivered. So it's as simple as that. No magic tricks needed. So in the remainder of this presentation, I will tell you how reactive voice UIs help us close this gap. I'll start first with the easy part, lowering expectations. And this can actually be done quite easily when you use a screen to help you. So, if you look at the typical voice assistant user interface, it's typical that that is associated with human behavior. So it's tried to made to behave like a human personality. And it's logical, you know, you want to build user experiences where the user can emotionally attach to the experience. But actually, that is actually working exactly on a negative and contrary way. Because people are really, really good in detecting fakes. And the closer we get to human behavior, the smaller differences the humans can spot in the experience. And that leads into a situation where if the system tries to behave like a human but isn't able to do it, it just becomes really creepy and really awkward. So this is the uncanny valley of voice user experiences. Now, the alternative approach for that is actually add a screen and show to the user what they can actually do. And you can leverage standard graphical user interface elements. And it's just important to communicate to the user that they are actually interfacing and using a machine that is really, really good in what it's doing rather than trying to impersonate being a person. So you're basically going from trying to interact with a really abnormally behaving human person to actually creating machines that work really, really, really well. Now, the second thing that the screen helps you to do is actually scope the context of the UI. And voice UIs, as we all know, typically are challenged by the fact that the users, they just don't know what the user interface actually supports, what's the features, what can they actually do with it. And if you look at most of the applications out there in the world, the most popular applications, they are actually built to solve a single, very narrow task in a very, very, very efficient way. So why should voice UIs be any different? So by using the power of a visual approach to limit the domain of the user, it can be made more clear and easy for the users to actually interact with the system because they know what the system is able to do and what features it can support. So if you look at these examples here, the user interface on the left, it's impossible for the user to know what it can and what it cannot do. On the contrary, on the right one, I think it's pretty obvious, it's pretty small here, but it's pretty clear that this is some kind of travel booking thingy. So it's very easy for the user to understand that, okay, I will not be ordering pizza or kebab from this one. From the other one, you probably would try to do that one or order a parking ticket or whatever. So we can leverage the UI to give hints to the user of what they can and what they cannot do in the voice experience. Now, finally, as opposed to trying to be the ultimate operating system, interface, or channel, voice can be used more effectively when it's thought of as a feature. And that means that when it's used to augment the user experience of existing graphical user interfaces. And the simplest of these examples is this: adding a simple microphone button to a search box or an input box. It's really a super low-hanging fruit in making it easier for users to interact with this service, especially on mobile. And the cool thing about this one is that it also paves the road for more advanced voice features down the road. And by the way, kudos for Apple for adding the voice button as a first-class citizen in the new Safari release. It's very important, these kinds of steps, to make voice an expected modality, like my friend Roger Kibe coined. So, next, let's talk about then how to increase the value delivered. Now, the secret to this is something we call the spoken language understanding. So, if you look at AI user experiences, they have the tendency to be absolutely magical when they work really well, but horrible and catastrophic when they aren't working. And to illustrate this, think about autonomous driving. If you are picked up by a car, autonomous car, that brings you safely to your destination, it feels absolutely magical. But if they drive you off the cliff, that's catastrophic. And with voice UIs, the difference between magical and catastrophic can be something as subtle as being able to order my pizza with a single utterance and it just works, or the system starting to call my ex-girlfriend or boyfriend by accident. And the reason why AI systems are still struggling is that failures are usually extremely costly. So how can we tackle the problem of errors being so costly? So there's two options for doing that. The first one is that let's create AI systems that just works, that they never do mistakes. That's amazing, that's great. Is that realistic? Well, nope. Well, the other approach is that what if we would be able to make the failures cost less and make it easier for the users to actually recover from these errors? We at Speechly believe that the latter approach is the one that will actually be yielding fruit in the short term. Of course, we are big believers in AI and hope that one day all of the promises of AI will be reality, but that's not today. So, if we look at how humans communicate, humans aren't that good in spoken language understanding either. We are not perfect. The typical human word error rate is 5%. So that means that if a sentence is 10 words long, humans actually misunderstand a word in every second sentence. So that's not a really good starting point. Humans also make a lot of errors. But what makes different in the human communication is that humans are actually extremely good at recovering from those errors super fast and easy. And what that means is that the problems and the errors don't cost so much for humans in human face-to-face communication. So, what is successful communication? Well, there's a lot of different definitions for that one. Short cycles, incremental delivery, being iterative, failing fast, getting feedback, delivering value early, transparency and adaptation. So, whoa, that's a mouthful. But that's what successful communication is about. But what's funny is that these principles are actually exactly the same principles that are used in current modern successful software delivery methodologies, like, of course, Agile. And the funny thing is that these are all also exactly the same principles that are the foundation for reactive voice UIs. So, let's look at the way how traditional voice UIs work. So they work so that when the user starts speaking, signal processing starts. When the user stops end speaking, a couple of hundred milliseconds after that, the signal is endpointed, a transcript is returned. That is then passed on to natural language understanding for getting the intents and entities of the speaker. After that, that is passed on for application-specific business logic, where the decision is made on how to respond to the user, after which there is the response back to the user, which is typically a speech synthesis. And this is a sequential waterfall type of approach where the value is actually delivered to the user only at the very end. And that means that all the errors along the way are silently accumulated and they only surface at the very end. And as they do that at the very end, then it's already impossible or extremely hard and late to actually recover from these errors. Now, with reactive voice UIs and spoken language understanding, the user's speech is being interpreted in real time. So the intents and the entities from the user's speech are extracted while the user is speaking. And the whole idea is to be able to provide the user with the fastest possible feedback loop so that value is delivered incrementally along the way, and it allows also the user to detect potential errors as early as possible, make corrective actions, and then continue with even extremely complex utterances. Other difference is the combination of real-time spoken language understanding and a screen that really allows a new type of information processing. So when voice assistant UIs work in a turn-based conversational manner, they are limited by the fact that the human brain is not able to speak and listen at the same time. But the human brain is actually extremely good at speaking and processing visual information at the same time. So when you actually leverage this information processing capacity and capability potential of our brains, you're actually able to create extremely fast and efficient voice UIs. Now, we've been talking about theory a lot, so I would now want to share a couple of examples of what reactive voice UIs mean in practice. And I chose a couple of examples from different industries to show you different types of problems that can be solved in a novel way. This is an example from the B2C side from voice search. And online shopping is something that I think everybody knows is full of friction along the user journey. Now, when voice is used as a feature along the user journey to fix certain parts of the experience, the shopping experience, the existing shopping experience can actually be made a lot more efficient and intuitive. So here's an example.
I'm looking for men's sneakers by Adidas, Puma, Nike, in color white, actually black. My size is 11. Can you sort by price, please?
Wow. So as you could see here in this example, the user was able to get visual feedback by the system. The system was responding to the user in real time, and what this allowed was the user to be confident in continuing with this quite complex task, also recovering from errors really fast, and changing their minds, because we humans, when we start speaking, we don't always know what we're going to say. It's just a stream of consciousness. And this is something that is impossible to cover with traditional conversational UIs. But with a streaming approach, this approach can really made reality. Here's another example. So websites, applications, always try to collect a lot of information from users. And typically this is done in the way of using forms. And these forms are quite tedious and quite annoying, and I'm sure that everybody here, are not like super thrilled. Woohoo! Yes, yet another form. Excellent. I'm happy to fill it. But what if you could actually just speak, and the form would then magically be filled in while you're speaking? Well, this is how it works in practice with Speechly.
Flying from Helsinki to Washington, D.C., departing on Monday and returning on Friday for 3 people in business class, and book direct only, please.
Again here, as you could see, the visual feedback that was provided to the user provided the user with confidence to actually continue with their task, and this is actually quite a complicated information capturing task. And also leveraging the spoken language understanding allows the user to recover from potential errors instantly. So, here's another example. And this is also from the day-to-day life. Our day-to-day lives are full of really tedious tasks. We spend hours doing things that we could, spend the same time doing something much nicer, much valuable, much more meaningful. And grocery shopping is one of those ones. So what if you could actually do grocery shopping 5 to 10 times faster than normally? Well, it's possible today. It works like this.
Apples, fair trade coffee, organic oranges, free-range eggs, bread, orange juice. Let's change up the bread. Whole grain looks good. Let's check out.
Cool. In this example, you probably noticed the power of multimodality. So when the user wanted to change the bread, they didn't need to start to engage in a weird conversational experience trying to recover the error, but they could actually just easily touch the product they wanted to change and select the alternative, and click, they were done instantly. And that's the power of multimodality, when you're really focusing on solving the end user's problems as well as possible, rather than creating conversations for conversation's sake. That's when you're really able to create amazing voice-empowered experiences that work and are super efficient. Now, here's my last example, and this comes from the B2B side. There's a lot of companies out there today who are wanting to make their professionals, their employees, more efficient and more effective. And I think it's pretty obvious because the business case is very clear. The more time my employees save, I can see that in cost savings. So, here's an example of how a voice UI can make a salesperson more efficient and effective.
Phone +1 312 983-0743. Email edwin.collins@acme.com. Deal size 60 kilos. Probability 70%. Set stage to proposal. Notes: Edwin was very interested in our solution for the web. Had problems integrating existing solutions. Will decide by next month. John Brown was mentioned as the technical contact point. His email is john.brown@acme.com. Tasks: send Edwin the deck by next Monday. Book a meeting with John Brown by next Tuesday.
Here, again, you can see the power of the real-time visual feedback, giving confidence to the user that the system is actually understanding them. And you could see the power of capturing structured data and doing that by using the visual feedback mechanism. imagine trying to capture all of this structured data using a conversational experience, I don't know, like 50 times a day. Might be quite frustrating. I would definitely not want to do that. And again, here, I don't know if you noticed, but Speechly does a lot more than just transcription. So while the user was speaking, entities were detected in real time from the user's speech. Enabling these kinds of experiences, we are actually able to directly, real-time capture structured data from a user. So, let's summarize. What are reactive voice UIs? So reactive voice UIs are really optimized for task completion. So using all the modalities available, including voice, to solve the end user's problem in an optimal and efficient way. They're also about leveraging voice as an input method, but actually leveraging the power of visual as a mechanism to get information back from the system. So it's a multimodal approach. And the power of that one is that it actually allows us to tap the full potential of our brains and reach a full duplex information process where we are actually able to, in real time, process visual information while we are at the same time interacting with the system using our speech. And reactive voice UIs, they look at voice as a feature to be used to complement existing graphical user interfaces rather than replacing them. So it's really about efficiency and making more powerful user interfaces. So I hope that this presentation has given you some new ideas and a good understanding on the opportunity of voice UIs basically on every single website and application out there. So actually, if we think about the opportunity here for us as the voice community, we all want to create better voice user interfaces that make it easier for people to interface with technology. I assume that's why we are all here, part of this community. But if you think of it, there is a lot bigger opportunity of doing that in all the websites and applications that people already use on a daily basis, rather than creating yet another competing media, yet another channels, and trying to compete for the user's time in using those channels. That's really the big opportunity of voice technology, and that's where we absolutely see the big potential for us in the voice community, changing how people interact with technology on a daily basis, not just in these new channels. Okay, so one more thing. So we are really excited to announce today a new feature on the Speechly platform that allows you to very easily, instantly convert your Alexa skills into Speechly reactive voice UIs that can be used on the web. And what this does is that it actually makes every single conventional designer actually a reactive voice UI designer. And this feature is available today, now. It was just a launch during my speech. And you can find it from the Speechly dashboard. So if you go to www.speechly.com, you will find it there. Click Start Developing and you'll find the Speechly dashboard from there. Cool. So if you have any questions or you have some specific use cases in mind that you would like to discuss, you are looking for doing some POCs, our team is here. You can find the contact details, you can see the faces, you can find us here. Please come speak to us, come talk to us. We would love to speak with all of you and listen and hear what you are building and see if we can be helpful in any way. Thank you everybody for having me here today, and thanks Pete for inviting me here. So.
Thank you, Otto.